Officer and Director, First Phosphate Corp., which trades on the OTCQX under the symbol FRSPF, the Canadian Securities Exchange under the ticker PHOS, and the Frankfurt under the ticker symbol KD0. John, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Nice to be here, everybody. So this is First Phosphate, our investor presentation. We are igneous phosphate, very rare igneous phosphate for the lithium iron phosphate battery industry, a very pure phosphate, of which almost 100% of it gets converted into phosphoric acid that then is the base for lithium iron phosphate batteries, which we'll go into here in a second. So let's first start talking about a little bit about the lithium iron phosphate battery industry out there. So, by any guess estimates, about 60 to 80% of all batteries produced out there nowadays are lithium iron phosphate batteries. They're different than what are the nickel, manganese, cobalt batteries, which also use lithium as a base. These LFP batteries are really taking off, and they have for a number of years because of obviously the input materials are less expensive. Their fire safety is much greater, and there's much more of an abundancy of the input items to make the batteries. They're also now, the batteries that are almost, 100% still made in China, and which we're looking to onshore very quickly here in North America and Europe. And as you can see, it's a tremendous growth rate for all sectors of this battery. One thing that's really, really interesting here, if you look at this next slide, is purified phosphoric acid. You see it down here in the bottom left of the screen. Purified phosphoric acid is probably the second most important element in terms of electrification after copper, even though many would probably think it's, nickel, manganese, graphite, cobalt, but it's really purified phosphoric acid. And what that means is not just phosphate, it means that the purest form of phosphate possible. They're now anticipating that we will need 33 new purified phosphoric acid plants to meet demand by 2030, but so far in the Western world, there's only 5 of them. If you look here on the right, you'll see the very pale blue line. That's the supply of purified phosphoric acid right now in the Western world. And then the dark blue is kind of the current uses for purified phosphoric acid. It's used, by the way, in lead acid batteries. It's used in things like Coca-Cola, believe it or not. It's used in furniture cleaning products. It's used for sheeting aluminum. It's used for cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, fire extinguishing, water treatment, and a number of other uses. So there's quite a few uses already of purified phosphoric acid in the Western world. But if you look at the growth curve here, they're saying it needs to double just to meet the battery requisites for LFP battery. But in fact, this is going to be, a tale of 6 times that use if you follow what Benchmark is saying here, where they think that 33 new phosphoric acid plants will need to be created by 2030. Now, here's a big issue with this is that currently with sedimentary rock, sedimentary phosphate rock, 80% of that production has to stay back as fertilizers because it's not pure enough, and only maybe 20% can go up to purified phosphoric acid. Whereas with this this igneous rock that we have in Quebec, almost 100% of it goes directly into making this purified phosphoric acid, where the big growth will be, and in supplying this gap that has been created in the market. So if we go on to our next slide, we'll see the differences between igneous rock. Igneous rock process is very clean. The gypsum that comes off of it can be used in construction, and it creates a lot of the phosphoric acid for LFP batteries, right? It goes almost 100% into LFP batteries. Whereas when you're dealing with sedimentary rock, you've got a waste issue, which is the gypsum slag piles, which you might have heard of that you see in southern Florida and also in the Utah area, because the gypsum is sedimentary. All of that gets stored, and it cannot be used, and it becomes a big environmental issue. So igneous rock doesn't have that. But then also the other issue is that the sedimentary rock only produces a small amount of purified phosphoric acid. And it's only the larger producers that will even go to that length. Most of the producers in sedimentary phosphate rocks, they stay in this commoditized fertilizer market because it's just too much additional capex to go into the purified phosphoric acid market. So really the igneous rock, which is only 5% of the world's rock out there, is the one that's best suited for LFP batteries, which we have access to. So now let's talk a little bit about this igneous versus sedimentary rock there. So if you look at the map of the world, all its red dots are basically sedimentary deposits. That's 95% of the world's phosphate reserves. The blue dots are igneous phosphate, of which 4% is basically carbonatites that you find up in northern Russia. They're kind of the only really large producing mines of this igneous phosphate, and they're very precious, but now they're sitting behind the sanctions. And then if you look down here in the southern African area, there are some carbonatites there as well, but they're hard to reach. There's some political issues, and so they are not really online. And then you have some carbonatites here in Brazil. They have a lot of rare earths in them, so mostly they go into making fertilizer because Brazil's got a very big agricultural market. And then you've got here, in where you see first phosphate here in southern Quebec. That's the igneous anorthosite that starts. It's a very special rock. It's basically an anorthosite. It's not a carbonatite, but it's still an igneous rock, and it's so pure that we're able to get the apatite, which you see up here in the top quadrant, up to almost 40.9% P2O5. That's phosphate. It's almost a pure phosphate. And then after that, you can see it goes down to the igneous in Russia, about 38%. And then the others until it drops down to Moroccan sedimentary around 31%. And then goes down into the 20s with everything else. So really the special thing about the igneous anorthosite that we have here in Quebec is the fact that it converts into such a clean apatite, which is phosphate concentrate. So it could almost 100% be beneficiated into phosphoric acid for batteries. That's the real key behind this igneous rock, and we do not have to touch the commoditized fertilizer market. We supply directly the battery industry. Okay, here's a little bit about our deposit. So basically, this deposit is sitting at about 1 kilometer from paved highway in Quebec. It's 2.5 kilometers wide. Okay, long, sorry, 2.5 kilometers long. It's about 300 to 500 meters wide, and it goes down about 300 meters for now. These deposits have been known to go down to about 1 to 1.5 kilometers in terms of being able to mine them. They mine them down to about 1.5 kilometers in Russia. But just with what you see here, with what we've drilled, without everything else that we could further explore and develop, there's about 23 years of phosphate that would be able to power half of the fleet of vehicles being produced in North America. That is 6 million cars per annum between Canada, the USA, and Mexico. That's how much phosphate we have in there to be able to do that, which would create this purified phosphoric acid. So that's really important, right? That equates to about 350 gigawatt hours of LFP batteries. And so, like I said, that represents 50% of the vehicle production in North America, just to give you sort of a benchmark on it. The net present value is 2.1 billion. The IRR is 37%. There's a 2.9-year payback. And currently, at the moment, what we have, it's a mine life of 23 years, but we know that can be expanded substantially. Okay, the location is very important here. If you look and you can see here where it says Bégin-Lamarche Phosphate, that's where our phosphate mine will be. That's at 70 kilometers driving distance from the port of Saguenay. At the port of Saguenay is where we will have our secondary purification facilities to be able to make the purified phosphoric acid. About 25% of the mine and about 25% of the purified of the phosphoric acid plant is off-taken. It's off-taken to a large producer in Europe, and the rest is going to stay back here for making LFP cathode active material for North America. Where we're situated in this region of Quebec is currently where all the aluminum is made, where a lot of the forestry industry is, and obviously there's a lot of problems with that now with the tariffs and other issues. So we're left with a really good industrial base workforce and good industrial base equipment suppliers. And so that really helps us out a lot because it allows us to advance the project without the big issues around workforce, which is a big issue for a lot of these projects that are where the mine is very far out in territory where you don't have a workforce. Also, we have very close rail here to North America, and obviously direct shipping to the world through the port of Saguenay. So if you look at our next slide, basically our operation obviously will be extraction and concentration at the mine site, and then at the port of Saguenay is moving into making phosphoric acid, and then after that with partners making LFP cathode active materials that then goes into the batteries and supplies the whole supply chain in North America. Our idea since the beginning has always been to create a fully vertically integrated North American supply chain for LFP cathode active material, because that's a big issue. If you see when there's quibbling between China and the U.S., you'll see China always come back and say things like, well, we're going to restrict rare earth exports. We're going to restrict gallium exports, but we're also going to restrict LFP exports. Nobody really catches on to the LFP, but it's a big one. The LFP battery industry is huge in North America. We're 100% reliant on China for it. So this is what we've been able to do. I think this is remarkable what our company was able to do here in the last few months. We were able to take that igneous and orthosite rock here, step one, that I was telling you about, and we've been able to put it into step two, which is make the phosphate concentrate, right? The 40% pure phosphate concentrate. And then with our partners in Europe, Prayon, we were able to make purified phosphoric acid for it that tested at the battery spec and food grade levels. And then with that, we were able to make iron phosphate. That's when you take the phosphate and a source of iron. Believe it or not, the source of iron was partially from our own property at Béziers-La-Marche in Quebec and was blended in with the scrap making process from GKN Hoganas in Tennessee. And then we were able to take that iron and the phosphate and make iron phosphate. It's a precursor. Then with the lithium from a group called Century Lithium in Nevada, we were able to make lithium iron phosphate cathode active material. That is taking the iron phosphate precursor and the lithium carbonate, and we were able to make the LFP CAM. Now, with the LFP CAM, we went to another company, Nouveau Monde Graphite, which is based in Montreal, and with a company called Altian that puts it all together. And we were able to make the world's first LFP batteries made in North America of fully North American critical minerals, of which, the iron and the phosphate was from our property. Now, this is incredible. Why? Because it tells us that we've been able to recreate the supply chain for North America for LFP battery in miniature. But what's more important even is that when we tested these cells, even though we had only made 150 of these cells, they were made at commercial grade and they tested the commercial scale just like any other battery, which means that all the elements that went into this, making this battery, are now basically validated into this process. So that was spectacular. It basically says to everybody, North America can make its own LFP battery made fully from North American critical minerals. We're the only company that's done this across North America. We have, a number of partners at the table. We've got the world's largest producer of phosphoric acid, Prayon. We've got American Battery Factory out of southern U.S. that's looking to make LFP batteries that needs access to our cathode active materials. Export-Import Bank is at the table for financing. Norfalco, a division of Glencore, is at the table with the supply of input materials such as sulfuric acid. We've got a full collaboration agreement with our Indigenous group. We've got support of the Quebec government, the Canadian government, and GKN Hoganas, the world's largest atomizer of steel powders. And we've got a number of other suppliers in between, local and international. We're a management team that always meets and beats all of our milestones. Our next big milestone is obviously to get through our feasibility study. We're well funded. We have almost $20 million in the bank. We've raised all that in the last 6 months. To date, we've raised about $40 million into the company. So we're progressing very quickly with our feasibility study, which is planned for the end of 2026. Our share structure is very tight. Management and board own about 25%. Public float is only 35%. Then very large high net worth and family offices, all very good, clean capital. We scrubbed it all ourselves. By the way, the $40 million that you see invested in the company has all been raised by management. So we know every single shareholder very carefully. We try to stay away as much as possible from any kind of toxic financings. I think we've done a good job there. And then also our Indigenous group has got 1% of the shares. So all in all, we're very tightly held. We're debt free. That's really important. We're royalty free. Which is really important. And we're able to progress very far along this feasibility study into permitting by 2026, early 2027. And we're hoping to be operational by 2029 to meet definitive offtake agreements that we have in place, which are bankable, by the way. Our board of management shall say no more, very deep in business, very deep in technology, very deep in mining. It's important to understand that we are a mining company and we're also a technology company all rolled up in one. Why? Because we aim to get from the mineral all the way down to the finished product with partnerships. Okay, and the last thing I'll just leave everybody off with is LFP battery, how versatile it is and why it's the battery of mass adoption. If you look here at the red portion of this pie, 7.1%, that's EVs. So EVs are only 7.1% of the uses of LFP battery. That's really important. The other 11% is large scale transportation, such as buses, public transportation, commercial transportation. The biggest is really this battery energy storage, this big 60.7%, which is, data center batteries for battery walls in people's homes to store energy, and it's also batteries for storing off of large scale projects such as wind, solar farms, and hydroelectric. So with that, what I'll do now is I'll just pass it on to some extra questions out there, and thank everybody else, everyone for taking the time to listen. If you have any other questions, you can always email me directly, john@firstphosphate.com.
Thank you, John. Say, you mentioned that First Phosphate intends to complete the feasibility study by the end of 2026, obtain the permits by mid-2027 and have an operating mine supported by the offtake agreements by 2029. What do you expect would be the major challenges and what's your kind of your roadmap at this point? I mean, do you think the permitting does that represent any challenges or just your thoughts on the process to an operating mine?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. So that is the roadmap that you just mentioned, and we're on track for it. Obviously, the biggest problem has always been capital, but now we're financed. We have $20 million to get us well through much of that process, if not almost to the end of that process. And we've done a lot of really good hard work in the beginning with a lot of the community organizations. Maybe if I just go back up to the slide here again, where it shows, all of our partnerships in the area. We've got partnerships with, CMAX, which is the local area industrial group of equipment suppliers. We've got partnership with our indigenous community. We've got a number of large operators at the table that have operated before. So Praiana is, it's the world's largest producer of phosphoric acid, has worked in that area before. Um, and we've got a number of community institutions. We're very close with the municipalities. We take a lot of time. So I think that, a lot of that helps a long way in terms of getting the permitting going. So that's been really our major force, has been really, building the proper relationships to be able to move quickly. Now we're well capitalized as well. We've got a really strong team in place. We've got our offtakes in place as well. So that really helps us to, it's really just a game of execution right now. And that's what we plan to do. We've got everything in place to be able to execute.
And then could you just maybe summarize the steps and the time frame to move from pilot scale production of purified phosphoric acid using your concentrate to a commercial scale?
Yeah, so that's already been done. You see, the Prayon is the world's largest producer of phosphoric acid. So we have a technology partnership with them. So we have access to basically, their process for making purified phosphoric acid. It's a process that, they've had going since the 1950s, basically. So there's no need. Our phosphate has already been tested. It's been made into purified phosphoric acid with Prayon. So there's really no need for us to invest in any further technology. We're already all proven out at the commercial scale.
And then just for investors, what are First Phosphate's unique advantages in the igneous phosphate to lithium iron phosphate battery supply chain, versus peers or even against maybe other technologies or alternative sources?
Yeah, so the way to make purified phosphoric acid is obviously, with igneous apatite, and the rock is attacked by sulfuric acid. There's another thermal process of making it, but it's just used a little bit in China, Kazakhstan, and Vietnam, and that's on the way out. It's too polluting. So the best rock in the world to to use to make purified phosphoric acid is obviously this igneous rock, and the igneous anorthosite with the highest percentage of P2O5, and that's what we create. Basically, we've been able to create the highest purity phosphate concentrate in the world. We've been able to create it at basically a lab scale. Now we're moving that up into the feasibility study, and so everything that we've been able to do is shows that almost 95% of this rock turns 100% to purified phosphoric acid. Our partners at Prayon have been doing it for years and years, and so there's no reason to believe that that shouldn't be true here as well. Um, so it's basically, it's really the purity of this igneous rock, right? It's a very special igneous rock here in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, Quebec, which is only 1% of all of phosphate in the world that really makes this possible. We bypass the entire commoditized fertilizer market. We don't have to touch fertilizer. We don't have to compete in that market. We go directly to where, and I'll show my screen here, where the big supply gap is going to be, and that's in the purified phosphoric acid.
And in early September, the company provided the results of the commercial testing of the battery cells, which was very significant, and a lot of partners involved in that. And I was just kind of wondering if you could maybe talk about some of your partnerships and how these relationships were forged, and whether you would, expect those to continue, as you move into production.
Yeah, great question, Mark. Thank you. So, just on the slide here where we put together these batteries. So yeah, I mean, this is a whole supply chain. No one can do this on their own. So if you look down here at some of the logos, I don't know if your viewers will be able to see the slide, but under step one, right, with University of Queens, University of Quebec at Chicoutimi, and our internal engineers, we were able to take the igneous anorthosite and make it into phosphate concentrate. That also involved the laboratory prowess of, uh, of SGS. We came down with a process that's standard flotation, no solvents, very environmentally friendly. And then the next partnership obviously was with Prayon to take um, that concentrate and make it into purified phosphoric acid. This is all on our website, by the way. All of these processes, all of these are on our website. You can see how all of this was made. And then obviously with Altian out of Nevada, and with GK and Hoganus, the world's largest atomizer of steel powder, we were able to take our magnetite and make it into iron powder, and then we made lithium iron phosphate precursor, which is the phosphate plus the iron. And then with our partnership with Century Lithium in Nevada, who had made some carbonate from their lithium clay deposit, we were able to make lithium iron phosphate cathode active material, which you see here in step 5. And then from there, Nouveau Monde Graphite, which is a large player in the graphite space, we were able to work with them to make the anode. And so together with all of that, Altian was able to make these battery cells. First LFP battery cells, 18650 battery cells made in North America of completely North American critical minerals. So you can see about 10, 15 organizations involved in their large partnerships. Those are partnerships that take a long time to develop. We've developed them over the last few years, and they're stronger and stronger than ever.
John, in closing, would you please summarize the company's investment highlights and the value proposition for investors?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So right now, the company trades at about 4 to 5% of the value of its PEA, preliminary economic assessment, at the mine. So basically, there's compelling reason that as we move through the feasibility study and to permitting, we should be able to close that gap very quickly. And that does not include, all the process. In fact, we've been able, make the LP battery cells and the rest of it. So it's been a really long road to get to where we are, but I feel like this is just the beginning. So I would ask investors to just kind of look at us as just the beginning of what this could be. Like, what's the value of the LFP battery supply chain in North America once put together like we have? And then the other question I would leave investors with is, all the lithium stories out there, all the lithium out there. Let's just say it continues to move to LFP battery, which is now 60 to 80% of the battery out there, and there's nowhere to get the phosphate in the Western world. Well, then it becomes a question of phosphate, right? And how many companies are out there in the phosphate world? And especially one that's fully focused on LFP battery like First Phosphate.
John, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mark.